Hello everybody, my name is Harpreet Sangha. I'm currently a student at Gurnik Academy and doing my RN, and I also am a practicing LVN. And I just want to say, welcome to my TED Talk. Today's topic that I've picked for my TED Talk is actually nurse burnout. You may ask, why would you pick that topic, Harpreet? Well, as a nurse that's been practicing for almost 6 years, I have firsthand experienced nurse burnout. And if you're not familiar with the topic, what nurse burnout is, or in general what burnout is, it basically just means that you've been working a long period of time. Maybe you're underappreciated, you're underpaid, whatever the case is. You have physically and mentally just been worn out. You're exhausted. It's just, at this point, you can only take so much and you're ready to bounce. But the reason why I chose nurse burnout is because I have personally experienced this throughout my nursing career. And the story is kind of crazy, so bear with me. I have been a nurse before COVID. So when COVID hit, I was a brand new nurse and I was working in a small facility called Twilight here in Fresno. Now Twilight, I was working in skilled, is actually completely closed down. It was a nonprofit. It doesn't exist anymore because of COVID, we ran out of funding. But fun fact, the facility I worked at, I don't know if it's really fun fact, but the facility that I worked at, when COVID happened, we were the first ones to get hit with COVID extremely bad. It was so bad that we actually needed the National Guards to come in and the American Ambulance to come in to keep us afloat. So during COVID, when I was working, brand new nurse, we do the normal 8 hours. I didn't expect everybody in my facility to get sick. All the patients got COVID almost. Most of the employees got COVID. And I was one of the patients that, I was one of the nurses that did not get COVID. And I kind of was in the front of the battlefield of COVID. We had tarps on the walls separating the non-COVID and COVID. We were running around gowned up, face shields, oxygen machines everywhere, left and right, trying to connect people, making sure people ate. It was, in my opinion, it was a war zone. And when I was working during that time as a brand new nurse, I was working 15 to 20 hour shifts continuously, back to back, for a long time because there was not that many nurses. And the place that I worked at had independent apartments outside. So me and a couple of nurses were actually living on campus with the job that we worked at for about 30 days, where we would sleep for 3-4 hours, shower, run into the facility, do 15 to 18, 19, 20 hours, come right back, do the same thing. We were provided meals, everything. At that time, no one really knew what nurse burnout was at my job because a lot of us had not experienced that. During COVID, the place that I worked at for 30 days, we lost about 15 patients compared to 35. And these are long-term patients that we've been with from the beginning, from the day that I started. And so at that time, when COVID kind of started clearing up and we were having employees come back in, I was too exhausted to even work 8 hours. And that's when I learned what nurse burnout was. I was staying up for long periods of time. I wasn't eating my correct meals. I wasn't drinking enough water. I wasn't taking enough mental days. It was just, everything was coming at me and I was just fighting back to stay afloat. And at that point, it took a really long time for me to reset and really understand what a nurse burnout was. And over time, I've actually done some research and I've realized after COVID, a lot of nurses either decided they don't want to be nurses anymore because it was just too exhausting. There was nurses that dropped out of nursing school. There was RNs that retired. A lot of nurses, what they did during that time with COVID were become agency nurses. And agency nurses is one of the best ways to not have nurse burnout. Because what you do is you go to other places, you work for extra money for the same amount of work that maybe your coworker who's not an agency nurse is doing. And so during COVID, what I noticed was to subside for the nurse burnout, because a lot of nurses were feeling burnt out, a lot of us decided to go into travel agency. And so I would say for about the next 2.5 years, you've seen a decline in skilled nursing where a lot of us nurses didn't want to work anymore because we were working overtime, underpaid, and understaffed. And that's when there was a spike when it came to agency nurses. And that's just another example of why nurses shouldn't have to work so hard, because if we're in a skilled facility and we're working the same amount of hours as an agency nurse who's making almost double as us, that made a lot of nurses want to venture out. And so that's why this topic is so sensitive to me, and it's something that I want to be able to solve, because as nurses, we should all come together. We should all be working equal pay. We should be fully staffed. And now that COVID has been gone for a few years, I've noticed that a lot of travel agencies are starting to die down. A lot of us are looking for long-term places, but that doesn't help the nurse burnout. Even after travel agency, even after COVID, we still see nurse burnout to this day. You can go to a lot of facilities, a lot of hospitals, and there's a lot of nurses who are exhausted working a lot of hours. And that's why it's really important for us to want to change the nurse burnout. And one of the steps when it comes to changing nurse burnout is definitely being fully staffed. A lot of places don't have fully staffed employees. And another thing that I really feel like could benefit from nurse burnout is offering enough pay to wanting us to work overtime. Because we shouldn't have to be underpaid, understaffed, and feeling exhausted when we go home to our loved ones, when all we do is take care of the people around us. And so for me, this topic with nurse burnout has been very, very passionate, and it's something that I want to work towards fixing. Because if we could just come together as a community to help each other, it would be so powerful. I know there's a lot of researchers going around now where we can talk about our mental health, which is actually really nice, because if you go a few years back, there was not a lot of policies for nurses to reach out to therapists and to discuss how they feel. I know now that there's better wages and we're able to fight more, but I want for the future to where we need regulations. I would prefer regulations for nurses to only work a certain amount of hours, and if you choose to work extra hours, maybe we can offer extra therapy and situations like that. But I really hope that over time, when it comes to nurse burnouts, we can get a better control. We've done beneficial stuff when it comes to therapies, talking to people, paying people well, making sure that we're staffed well, but I still think we have so much work to do. And I just hope with time that we are able to become better as medical workers, feel less exhausted, be more conscious and ready to fight with lots of energy. Thank you so much for coming to my TED Talk.